It is a mountain of stone reshaped by human hands to defy armies, weather, and time itself. When we look at a medieval castle today, we see a romantic ruin, a skeleton of grey rock. But to the medieval mind, this was not romance. It was a weapon. It was an act of violence against the landscape. To understand a castle, you must strip away the ivy and the silence. You must see it as it was in the year 1290. Not a passive building, but a machine. A machine that required the mobilization of an entire nation's economy and a logistical genius that rivals the Apollo space program. The mastermind behind this was not usually the king, though he footed the bill. It was the ingeniator, the engineer. Men like Master James of St. George, the architect of King Edward I's Iron Ring of Castles. His official title was Magister Cementarius, the Master Mason. He was part architect, part general, and part CFO. Because before a single stone could be laid, he had to win a war not on the battlefield, but in the ledger books. The first enemy is physics. A fortress like Beaumaris requires over 30,000 tons of stone. To build the Tower of London, the Crown imported creamy limestone from Caen in Normandy. But for the great frontier castles, you dig where you stand. But stone is heavy, and medieval roads were little more than dirt tracks. The economics were brutal. In the 13th century, the cost of transporting stone just 12 miles by cart equaled the cost of the stone itself. If you didn't have water, you didn't have a castle. The Magister had to be a master of logistics. He would reshape the hydrology of the region, digging canals and dredging rivers. When land transport was unavoidable, the sheer mass of the construction materials devastated the local infrastructure. Roads had to be paved and reinforced solely to prevent the king's delivery wagons from sinking into the earth. The castle didn't just occupy the land, it consumed it. Once the stone arrives, the army assembles. Not soldiers, but cementari are masons. We see their ghosts today in the masons' marks left on the blocks. These weren't graffiti, they were invoices. A way to tally how much work a man had done. The site was a sensory assault. The air would smell of unwashed bodies, wood smoke, and the acrid, burning scent of quicklime. There was a rigid hierarchy of labor. At the bottom, the rough masons or cubitors. They hacked out the rough rubble and laid the heavy blocks. Above them, the aristocracy of labor, the Freemasons. They were named not for a secret society, but because they worked freestone, fine-grained limestone capable of holding intricate detail. Together, they built the walls using a technique that has allowed these structures to survive for 700 years. It is called rubble core construction. They filled the gap with loose flint and rubble, then drowned it in liquid lime mortar. This wasn't modern cement. It was a hot mix that chemically generated heat as it cured. It didn't just dry, it fused. The wall became a single, solid geological unit, monolithic and immovable. But a castle is useless if it cannot kill. As the walls rose, defensive technology was woven into the very fabric of the stone. The genius of the medieval engineer was to weaponize the attacker's own psychology. Consider the gatehouse. To the attacker, it looks like the weak point, a hole in the wall. That is the trap. As you rush into the Barbican passage, the portcullis slams down behind you. You are not inside the castle. You are in the killing zone. Above you are the meurtriers, the murder holes. Hollywood will tell you they poured boiling oil. They did not. They used boiling water, heavy rocks, or the most terrifying of all, heated sand. Red-hot sand acts like a liquid. It finds the gaps in your armor, trickling down to the skin where it burns and sticks. Even the windows were weapons. The balustraria, the arrow loop. On the outside, a terrifyingly narrow slit, barely inches wide. But on the inside, the wall splays open. This allows the defender a massive field of fire. It is asymmetrical warfare engineered into the masonry. One man inside is worth 50 outside. As the castle neared completion, the scaffolding was removed. The deputlog holes, where the timber beams sat, were often filled in or left open for maintenance. But the final step was one we rarely see in movies. They didn't leave the castles grey. They whitewashed them. A castle like Conway or the White Tower in London would have shone brilliantly in the sun. It was a beacon. It told the local population, we are here. We are watching. And we are permanent. To build such a thing was to bankrupt a treasury. It broke the backs of a generation of labourers and consumed forests of timber. But the result was a machine of control so absolute that many of these castles were never even attacked. The engineering was so perfect, the mere sight of it was enough to win the war. They are silent now, stripped of their white coats and wooden floors. But place your hand on the cold stone, and you can still feel the ambition of the Magister Cementarius. History is not written in ink. It is written in stone.